I'm suggesting that gender studies asks us to rethink the way we know our world. I'm proposing that it is a mode of inquiry that asks us to consider how the relations of power and possibility by which the world is structured involve something called gender, understood as an embodied, structured set of relationships. And if we need to take into account the relation of power that takes place between men and women in the public sphere, in the household, in the workplace, then we need a name for that power relation we are studying. So although many people think gender is gender identity, like what gender are you? How do you identify? Gender is, I think, more fundamentally an inquiry into a set of power relations that are embodied differently in different contexts. We also, I think, need a name for the very inquiry into those settled arrangements, modes of inequality and hierarchy, modes of kinship and family, that have come to define what we mean by public or by political, or virtue or health, many concepts that have been conventionally associated with masculinity. And if we ask whether another way of ordering society is possible, we're also asking about gender, because gender always has that normative dimension, what is possible to imagine. If gender is a way of understanding a dimension of power that orders society, a set of relations that variously order society, an order that changes in time and place, then it's not first and foremost an identity. An identity would have to be situated within those relations. It's a way of asking not only how are relations between men and women organized in society, but how do the very notions of men and women become settled categories with presumed meanings? If we ask whether a woman can undertake a certain form of work that has conventionally been undertaken by men, we're not only asking whether or not she has a certain capacity, we're also asking about the very definition of what a woman is or can be. In other words, the definition of women has to change to accommodate the recognition that she does, in fact, have that capacity, or that some women do. And when we find ourselves in an anxious moment, a moment marked by anxiety, asking ourselves whether it would be too masculine to do a certain activity or appear a certain way in public, then we become aware that under certain circumstances we can lose that sometimes firm sense of being masculine or feminine, or that we can appear to have lost it in the eyes of others, which means that these very terms, masculine and feminine, can be challenged. Many people order their lives or live according to an established gender order in order to make sure that that very sense of anxiety can stay quelled. But that anxiety tells us something important. I actually think it's a common anxiety. Someone says, oh, I can't possibly go out looking that way. What is happening in that moment? I cannot be seen in that way. I cannot learn that kind of skill or show that kind of vulnerability or show that kind of strength, right? I will lose some fundamental sense of who I am in the world and how I'm regarded, bound up with gender, and somehow those negotiations show that those boundaries can be trespassed and that there are some psychic and social consequences for trespassing them in that way. All of these quite intimate concerns and anxieties attest to the fact that the social order that is supposed to be natural and necessary, according to the anti-gender ideology movement, permits of challenges and deviations, that the social order itself can change, and that indeed, anthropologically considered, there are many such orders. Luckily, I would add, both men and women may find themselves less concerned with solidifying gender according to certain norms than they used to. And for some of them, It does not mean that they've ceased to be men or ceased to be women, but only that they've been living out the historical changes in the category itself. Gender changes through time, and by gender I do not mean only masculine or feminine, but the entire arrangement, including the exclusive condition. There can only be masculine and feminine and no other option. So the exclusive condition is part of this ordering. No other gendered life beyond that binary belongs to a certain arrangement of gender, a distinct set of historical formations that are thus impermanent and changeable. So gender is, again, not just gender identity, but rather an historically changing arrangement of a set of embodied social categories subject to normative power that have to be grasped as dynamic and relational.